T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All three engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Coach on Fire Radio.
I am the tiger, dancing through the fire. I am the champion, and you're gonna hear me roar.
Welcome to Coach on Fire, High Performance Leadership with Stephen Bryant. Let me introduce myself to you. I'm John Maxwell, certified coach, trainer, and speaker. And for the last 5 years, I've been working in executive positions with two nonprofits here in Fort McMurray. I'm a former pastor, serving for 20 years in New Brunswick and Newfoundland. And during my time in Newfoundland, I was a chaplain for the Toronto Maple Leafs AHL affiliate in St. John's. I developed a passion for photography while traveling in Israel for 10 years ago, and now I'm a freelance photographer. Originally from Maine, so a big shout out to all my New England friends listening. I have a beautiful family, being married for 39 years to my amazing wife, Patty, have 4 children almost coast to coast here in Canada, and we also have 3 amazing grandsons. I'm a co-author on a book coming out this fall entitled Dare to Transform, Dream It, Believe It, Be It. I'm also a co-founder with Michael Brooks, who is the founder of Coach on Fire with the Shining Mickey Awards. And you can contact me on Facebook at Stephen Bryant. I also have a Facebook group at Coach on Fire High Performance Coaching with Stephen Bryant, Facebook photography page at Stephen Bryant Photography. You can find me on Instagram, PastorMan007, on Twitter, Steve Bryant 007, and my email, StephenBryantPhotography@gmail.com. And before we get started with tonight's amazing guest, I wanted to talk about adding value to people's lives, and that's really one very important part of the show. And as I interview guests, I want you to listen closely to their story. And we all face things from time to time. We face difficulties, we face obstacles, and some more than others. And we don't have to stop in our tracks when adversity comes our way, and it can be overcome. And as the quote by Nito Keeban goes, your present circumstances don't determine where you can go, merely determine where you can start. And without further ado, let me introduce our guest, Greg Reid. Greg, it's great to have you with us.
Awesome. I've been looking forward to it, Steve.
Yeah, same here. Greg, one of the things I came across when I'm looking at some of the things you've done, one quote that you have is, "It's a dream is a reality waiting for you to get there." Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, it's just speaking truth and in common sense. You know, so many people don't understand this, but a dream is just a reality waiting for you to get there, meaning that everyone's got a concept of what they want, but they're not willing to take the action. And it's the action in the law of attraction that makes our dreams come true. You got to think it, feel it, but ultimately you got to get off your backside. You got to take action, and you got to do it.
Greg, you've been hand-selected. And the reason I'm asking this, because I just finished reading this book, Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And I see that you were hand-selected to the Napoleon Hill Foundation. Tell me how that came about and what you're doing with that right now.
Well, it's really interesting. So when Napoleon Hill wrote that amazing title, well, it was back in 1937, they published it, but it started in 1908, where Napoleon Hill was a young aspiring magazine reporter and got access to the richest cat of the world. His name was Andrew Carnegie, the steel magnate. And it was supposed to be a 30-minute interview, turned out to be 3 days and nights. And at the end of the interview, Carnegie says, "I like you because I'm going to give you an opportunity." He says, "Work for me for free for 20 years and I'll introduce you to my friends. You'll pick their brains and write the first ever formula for success." Napoleon Hill thought about it for a second and said, "Work for free for what?" And he turned around and says, "For Carnegie, not only will I accept that mission, I'll complete the task." Carnegie says, "You got yourself a job." And then Hill says, "Why are they going to talk to me? I'm just a kid. You know, I'm nobody." He says, "I'll write you a letter of recommendation. When they see it, they'll know I sent you. Give you all the time you want." Sat down with Edison, Einstein, Fords, the Rockefellers, and wrote the 20th best-selling book in history. But here's what people don't know. Carnegie was a stickler for action and gave Hill 60 seconds to make up his mind to work for free for 20 years. And he started a stopwatch in his pocket. And when Napoleon Hill walked out, Carnegie pulled out the stopwatch and there was 31 seconds left. He made his choice in only 29. But what gets cool is that Carnegie made that same offer to over 250 men before Napoleon Hill. He was the only person to act.
Wow. I didn't realize that one. That is amazing. And the book is definitely, I can, where I said I was just finished reading it, can understand why that has been such a bestseller. Very fascinated by the interviews that he had, especially with, like you were saying, the Edisons, Fords, and the Carnegies of that era. And definitely, this is coming out of a time and period where America was had just really starting to come out of a depression, and so it was a very fascinating book to read. You've authored a number of books, Greg. Tell me about some of the ones that really stand out to you.
Well, back to the Napoleon Hill thing. So to continue the conversation, so that was in 1908. And you fast forward 100 years to 2008. The president and surviving family of Napoleon Hill wrote me a letter very similar to the one that Carnegie wrote to Hill. And they gave me a Willy Wonka ticket to travel the world, to meet the most powerful and influential people today and tell their stories in books and films. So I write the Think and Grow Rich series through the Napoleon Hill Foundation. So, for example, my first project out there with Sharon Lecter was called 3 Feet from Gold 10 years ago. And it was the only book in the history of the world Barnes and Noble published themselves. And we did a joint venture with them. And then when I did Stickability, it was the first book in history that the new publishing company where the two giants got together was Penguin and the other one. And what happened is the publisher read it in his own words as the Audible book. And from there, we did an audio series, and it was the first project that Amazon ever got the rights to. And what happened is it started this siphon, so to speak, where all this great classic content was mixed with modern stories that people could relate to and became the juggernaut it is today.
It is interesting because that 3 Feet from Gold, Napoleon Hill talks about that in his book, where this guy had laid the stake to a claim and kept digging and digging, and he finally gave up. Says, no, there's no gold, but if I've got the story right, that he gave up, and the person he sold that to, they found out and did some investigation, found out he had missed that vein by about 3 feet.
Well, the story goes is that the short version, his name was R.U. Darby, and he had gold fever, but he had nothing to do about gold. Had no idea. He was just, had the idea. Went out west, found a couple nuggets, and got excited, and he hit it, and he told his family, and they chipped in money to buy equipment, tens of thousands of dollars.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And when it came out, he was so excited. It was full of gold, but it ran out. Eventually, he quit because there's no more gold. And he saw a junk man walking by. He says, give me $200. I'll say to mine all this equipment. And the junk man, realizing equipment is worth thousands because the family chipped in and said, you got a deal. But then he went to an engineer, the junk man did, and said, what happened? This guy hit gold and ran out. He says, gold runs in a straight line called a vein. He goes, Darby came in one side, hit the gold vein, and popped back into dirt. He goes, go back where they discovered treasure, go 90 degrees, 3 feet. You'll tap back into the vein, and pulled millions upon millions. Fort Knox is filled today with that gold. But the moral is, how many times have we or someone we know quit one class short from a degree or sales or marketing? And it's easy to quit. But sometimes you have to just adjust a little, go 3 feet, and boom, there you go.
That's right. Greg, tell me, everybody has a story, and one of the things I found out in the work that I've done with the homeless here in Fort McMurray is that everybody has a story. And I'd love to hear your story, the kind of the condensed Reader's Digest version of that. But where did you start? Where you've got today? A little bit about that.
I'm just a regular guy, so I'll pass on that. Just a regular guy, it's just I'm probably the least qualified guy to do what I do. I'm just very blessed. And so I've been in the right place in the right time and took massive action. And here we are. But what I'll tell you about, instead of the past, I'll tell you where I'm going, because I think that's more interesting. One of the interviews I did on this project was a guy named Frank Shankwitz, founder of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, who will be part of the Shiny Mickey Awards. And
that's right.
His wish was, and he said that no one ever asked him his wish. And so I wanted to grant that for him. And he said he wanted a story to be told. So it's taken 5 years and millions of dollars. And we just completed his life story called Wishman. And next week will be the first ever unveiling screening to all the distribution companies worldwide. So it's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool because a couple of days ago I interviewed Frank, and what an amazing guy he is. Just a lot about who he is. And he said the same thing that you said, Greg. Is I'm just a regular guy, and just happened to grant this wish to this young boy who was dying, who wanted to be a motorcycle cop. And the story is one of those ones is definitely a tearjerker, but really fascinating. And I can see where Frank is just one of those guys that was willing to do something for somebody. And a lot of times that's just what it is. It's just that that desire to grant a wish, or that desire to lend out a helping hand, or that desire to help somebody that's not that may be going through a difficulty, or those are the people that really fascinate me, and I am just really privileged to be able to interview him, and as well as you, Greg. I'm looking forward to working together with the Shining Mickey Awards.
Yeah, it's gonna be
absolutely
be a blast. It's interesting because the whole moral of that movie and Frank's message is that everyone can be a hero. And,
sure.
You can start, by giving a pair of socks to a homeless guy who could use it, or stopping a bully from picking on somebody. Everyone can do some simple act and it can have that ripple effect. And so you don't have to be a millionaire or a celebrity to do something that impacts somebody's life. And that's what our movie and that's what this project's all about. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah. And the other thing, too, is granting hope to those who have no hope. And a lot of times, as you just said, Greg, is, offering that helping hand and saying, listen, I want to help you with Frank, grant a wish, and those types of things. So it's really very fascinating. What stands out to you, Greg, and some of the things that you've done? You've been featured on CNN, ABC, Rolling Stone, CBS, some of the books you've written. What are some of these things that you've gone through that stand out? And on top of that is, as you're looking at the future, what are some of the things that really excite you about the future?
Well, those are all just the accolades, and that means that's just, I don't even know how to comment about that one. It's kind of like the Margaret Thatcher quote, says, if you have to tell someone you're rich, powerful, or beautiful, you're none of the above. It's always right?
That's a good way of putting it.
Right. So out of all the great things I would say, it's like most of us would be as my kid. I got an amazing 6-year-old son who's that's what probably is the greatest thing that happens to me, and I look forward to the future of that. When it comes to work stuff, look, there's always projects. There's always something else. I'm always going to make another movie or do another book or whatever. It's just stuff. That's just work stuff. But it's who we are. And, it's kind of interesting. I heard what you said about feeding the homeless and whatnot. I've got a different viewpoint than perhaps you do on that one. I'd like to discuss. And this is probably taking in a different direction, but it's kind of interesting. So I got a nickname called the Millionaire Mentor because I mentor inner city kids in San Diego. And for years, I took them all to go feed the homeless people to see that what they are going through isn't so bad. And then for years, I started asking these people, first of all, I realized one thing you said before is that everyone knows something you don't know. So I always thought that was cool about no matter who you meet, someone knows something you don't know, and you can always be learning. And then I realized that the homeless people, it's like 49% of the people on the street are mentally unstable, and I'm not a doctor, and I unfortunately cannot help them. The other 49% choose to be there. I mean, majority of these people choose to be there. And then that 2%, they're the ones living in the shelters that are check away and things are happening. Usually they're getting support, and I love to help that. But I stopped spending all my time feeding and helping the people that chose to be on the street. And I realized that I wasn't God and couldn't fix the mentally unstable. So I changed my whole viewpoint, and I teach this to the people I mentor now, is I started rewarding the people that are the hardworking people that might not get recognized. So for example, if I'm at a hotel and some guy's scrubbing the windows and working his butt off, I go up and give him the $20 and say, hey, by the way, you're doing a great job, because nobody does that. No one rewards and honors the people that are working. Why give it to some